So yeah, so basically, you know, he's had enough, and he's to the point now where he doesn't give a shit. Like, how many of us have had those moments in our lives where we just gave up? Like, we don't give a shit. We're like that guy that says, "It is what it is." Got a spider here. Okay, I think I got him. Uh, I know here the last few months I've had those moments myself where I just don't give a shit. And that's basically what this man is doing here. He's given up, and he's on a mission. He's on a destination. He wants to go home. He just wants to get home. And he's told these guys, "Clear a path, you motherfuckers," throwing the baseball bat at them. But here's the thing. In our next scene, when we cut to the next scene, I think it's the next scene. Hold on. Oh, it's the scene after this. But in the next scene, we also get to see that there are consequences for our actions. Like when we piss someone off. If we piss the wrong people off, they could come back and try to find you later, and this shit could happen. We see that they come by and they organize this whole drive-by, and of course it's just a chance coincidence that they run into him later. He happens to be on the phone trying to call his ex-wife, and but this is the point in the movie where he basically lets her know that he's on his way, that he's coming, and she gets scared and ends up calling the cops, and this is when the cops start to get involved. And but anyway, so they organize this drive-by, and the lady, I'm not sure who she is, but she basically tells them, "Don't do this, it's not worth it, blah blah blah." But they end up shooting right where he's at. They shoot at him and totally miss, but they hit innocent civilians. Like, they hit a bunch of innocent people. And then it's at this point we see this guy, he's not thinking clearly. He's not like a regular guy. Like, his mindset is, I'm going home, I have a mission, fuck the world. Because he has nothing on his mind at this point but vengeance on those guys. He walks right past the people that are injured, doesn't offer the help, doesn't just walks right past them. In fact, kind of squeezes around the crowd, kind of moves around, and it's at this point where we sort of lose our empathy for this guy just a little bit, just enough to not totally be totally unempathetic for this guy, but at the same time be a little like, oh wow, what, he just walked right past him. Like, why didn't he offer the help? Like, if it was any of us, he kind of caused all that. If he hadn't have messed with these gang members, none of that would have happened. So those innocent people that got killed or shot at, the least he could have done was stopped and tried to help him. So it's at this point where half the audience is with him and the other half isn't at this point. And we get to really see, who really cares for humankind, where the human race is really headed. Because you see people getting shot on the street and you don't stop to help, then you're pretty much unempathetic. Now we can assume that maybe his adrenaline is going and his mindset is on vengeance. He's angry, he's upset, and he really didn't notice the people injured, I guess. But that's kind of a stretch. I mean, you see people laying on the street after you just got shot at and they missed. So we know now his mind is on straight up vengeance. There's nothing There's no getting around it. This guy is deranged. He's lost it totally, completely at this point. So then we skip to that scene. We see them. They get, I guess the term is jackknifed or T-boned by an oncoming truck. Comes and hits them and totally fucks up their car. And so then he comes around the corner and he grabs one of the guns out of their gym bag. Or maybe the guy had a gun. No, that's what it was. The guy had a gun in his hand, and he grabs the gun from his hand, and basically, well, here's the scene. I'll cut to this scene, but I'm not going to cut to any more scenes in the movie because I don't want a huge ass copyright strike or copyright claim from YouTube. I'll cut to this one and then the Whammy Burger one, and then that's it.
Fucking do it, man. Oh, man. Fuck you, mother. There. See? That's the concept. Take some shooting lessons, asshole.
So then we cut to Pendergast, who's in the chief's office, and the chief's basically talking him down. He's calling him a coward, and it is at this point we see the parallels that are drawn between the cop, the good guy, and the bad guy, and how very much the same that their life is each other. And so we get through that, and then here's the payoff scene. Like, we see when he's talking to the gang guys and he doesn't want to give up his briefcase. He gets in that big old fight over the briefcase. He's like, I'm not giving you my briefcase. And then proceeds to swing at them with the baseball bat and the briefcase, thus, scaring them off, getting their knife, and then ends up shooting them and getting their guns later on. But so now he's walking down this what I would call Skid Row. It's just terrible. It's filled with homeless people. People are holding signs, there's and also this seems to be like the end of the construction line. Like, this is another obstacle in his way, and one more reason for him to get pissed off. So we see he walks down and there's a construction guy, and he needs to cut straight that way, but the guy won't let him. And he says, basically, go around that way. He's like, but I need to go straight through this way. He goes, well, you can't go straight this way. And he goes, says who? He goes, says Metro. But in all fairness, defense at this point, he doesn't argue with the guy. He just turns around and starts walking the other way. And this is when he runs into a homeless guy who obviously is a really, really bad liar. He tells him he hasn't eaten in 3 days, yet he has a sandwich right in his hand as he's talking to him. Obviously some sort of druggie. He's got some kind of drug addiction of some kind. He's looking for a handout. And basically defense tells him to get a job. And when the homeless man confronts him, he says, you got 2 briefcases there. How come you have 2 briefcases and I don't have one? That's not fair. I could sell your briefcase and eat for a week with what the money I get from it. It is at this point you can see defense has kind of got a little bit of sympathy for this guy. Even though he tells him, he grills him at first, because the guy says, loan me a couple bucks, I'll mail it back to you when I get a chance. And he asks him for his driver's license and stuff like that. And the guy says, "What are you, a cop or something?" And blah, blah, blah. And then he lies to him about being a Vietnam vet. And he catches on. It's funny because he goes, "I'm a vet." He goes, "You're an animal doctor?" He goes, "No, I'm a Vietnam vet, man." And he's like, "What were you, a drummer boy?" You can see that Defense has some sort of sense of humor, maybe even a dark one, because later on in the movie, when we see him at the Whammy Burger, we could see his dark sense of humor start to shine through a little bit. But anyway, so when he gives him the briefcase, and this is the guy searches through the briefcase and finds a sandwich and an apple, and that's all that's in the briefcase. And he gets pissed off, and he takes the apple and throws it at him and goes, "You son of a bitch!" You know? And here's the thing. I don't get that part. It's like, what did he expect to find in the briefcase? Did he expect to find, like, money in the briefcase? I mean, seriously, the guy's dressed like Dilbert. He's in the business attire with a friggin' briefcase. I mean, the most that could have been in there was paperwork and maybe a calculator, maybe some ink pens. What was the whole goal that you were intending to achieve? And then you get pissed off when you find just a sandwich and an apple in there. I don't know, I digress. But anyway, I mentioned Dilbert because for those of you that maybe remember Dilbert, the comic strip Dilbert, this is basically Dilbert gone wrong. I mean, this guy has the same haircut, same glasses, same necktie. I mean, it's basically what would happen to Dilbert if his family abandoned him, not abandoned him, but if his wife left him, if he got fired, and he had all of this stuff happening to him. He had this bad day. Basically, if Dilbert had gone postal. And if I'm not mistaken, this was back in the 90s when the term postal was coined. So basically now we get to the part of the movie where Pendergast is at the police station and he's at the interrogation room, and they're interrogating the gang member's girlfriend, and he finds out, she says the man had on a white shirt and a necktie. And this is when Pendergast is putting two and two together on when he finds out that he had the baseball bat, which of course was stolen from the convenience store. And now we're getting to what is my favorite part of the movie, the Whammy Burger. I love this Whammy Burger moment. This is one of my favorite parts of the movie. This is something that back in the day we all wanted to do, and I mentioned this at the very beginning of the review. I will show a short clip of this one, but obviously he gets there and it's after 11:30 and they stop serving breakfast after 11:30. He looks at his watch and I think it's just 5 minutes after, and so he wants to talk to the manager, and the manager basically very snarkily tells him, "Hey, I'm sorry, but you'll have to order from the lunch menu." And he goes, "Well, I'm sorry." And then he pulls out a gun. Now, a little bit extreme, I'll give you, but basically he pulls out a gun and then he makes this joke about the Whammy Burger special sauce. Let's play that short clip.
How about you, son? Is it good? And you, man? How's the food? I think we have a critic.
I don't think she likes the special sauce, Rick.
So we're done with the whammy burger. We're leaving the whammy burger, and there's this guy who's harassing him. This shit just never stops. It's always just one thing right after another, and that's often how our lives are. But he's there. He's on the telephone, and the guy will not stop harassing him. He's like, "Get off the phone! Get off the phone!" And then he finally gets off the phone, and the guy's a total fucking dick about it. He's like, some of us like to use the phone, And he's like, "Oh, really?" And then he takes out his Uzi, and then he shoots the phone. It's either an Uzi or a MAC-10. I don't know my guns that well. I think it's an Uzi. And he shoots the fucking phone booth. He shoots the phone booth. Now, of course, you got to imagine, this is way before cell phones. So I imagine this would not even have been in this movie, considering now we have cell phones. Now, back then, cell phones were kind of a thing, but they were new. More or less, what you had was pagers. But anyway, so he shoots the phone booth. And, here, I won't play it, but I'll let you listen to it, because like I said, after the whammy burger, pretty much done showing clips. But I'll let you listen to the conversation here. So there's his wife. So now he's on the phone. Okay, here we go. I think this is it here.
Excuse me. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there's other people waiting to use the phone here.
There are?
Yeah.
Other people want to use the phone.
That's right, you selfish asshole.
That's too bad, because you know what?
What?
By the way, a little note here. There is a giant butt. There is a giant butt in the background. I'll try to show you some of this in silent mode, but it is so hilarious. And then the guy he doesn't run away or anything, by the way. He just stands there and watches him shoot down this phone booth.
I think it's out of order.
And there you go. I think it's out of order. But yeah, the guy just stands there with this puzzled look on his face like, oh shit, that guy's nuts. It's so funny. I gotta tell you, I don't really relate to this, and I don't think a lot of people really related to this at the time. And certainly not now. It's definitely not held up very well, because there are no phone booths. There aren't even half phone booths like we had later on. There was just half phone booths or whatever. But this was just so cheesy and just so corny, it's just one of my favorite moments, because it's just funny. It's just funny. It has nothing to do with living out a fantasy of any kind. It's just, I don't know, I just like the clip. Anyway, moving on. So after we get that hilarious phone booth clip, he wanders off into a army surplus store. And I gotta say, right off the bat, the guy that plays the owner of this shop is just a character. He's just a straight up character. He's a racist, I hate using this word, but homophobic character. I hate that word. I hate that term. He's not a homophobic, but a homo hatred character. There, that's better. I don't like the word phobic. It makes it sound like we're afraid of gays or something, which we're clearly not. But anyway, it is at this part of the movie where the guy who we were supposed to be rooting for during the entire movie now suddenly reaches the breaking point. Now suddenly, yes, he's done a lot of horrible things. The whole beating the merchandise up in the guy's shop with the baseball bat, that was kind of minor. The whole telling a homeless guy to go fuck himself, that was nothing. The guy kind of deserved it. Even when he shot the gangster, the gangster shot a bunch of people. He was a bad guy. He really deserved it. You know, so at this point we're still kind of rooting for this guy. But it isn't until he pulls this final act of what he calls in the movie the point of no return, is where he kills this racist Nazi asshole. As it turns out, the guy is a total Nazi. He hides defense from the cops. The lady cop shows up, and of course the guy makes some kind of remark about her. Why don't they call you Officer S's or whatever he says? And then, like, he sees the duffel bag on the ground. She goes, "He be carrying a duffel bag." I don't know why she said it that way, but she said he be carrying a duffel bag as though she's now suddenly Irish or something. But anyway, he kicks the duffel bag off to the side, and he actually pulls the curtain, hiding the guy. But then later we find out that he's totally racist. He's totally, what did I call it? Homoist, I guess you'd call it. But now he begins showing him stuff around the shop, and we see Nazi flags and Nazi symbols and statues of Nazis and Nazi uniforms and stuff like that. And still at this point, remember, the audience is still, they're still invested in this guy. They're still kind of rooting for him. The defense guy, I mean, not the Nazi racist guy. But we find out where defense does draw the line. We do see where he is a true American, and he is sort of a good guy in his own way. And this guy's just like a Nazi asshole. And so there's a point where he tells him, he says, "You and I are the same." And then defense goes, "No, we are not the same. I'm trying to get home to my family. You, however, are a deranged asshole." And then all of a sudden we see the Nazi guy turn face on him, and he gets upset with him. And then defense points out, he's like, "I'm just simply disagreeing with you. I'm practicing my right to free speech," or whatever he says. And then the Nazi guy goes, "Fuck you and your rights." And that's when he turns on defense, has him lean up against the counter, and we see him, he quotes the line, he goes, "Give me your other hand." And defense is like, "No." And he's like, "Well, why not?" And he goes, "Gravity." He goes, "What do you mean gravity? What's this gravity shit?" And he's like, "Well, if I give you my other hand, I'll fall down." He cites the name of the movie, Falling Down, you know. He does eventually do just that. He falls down. And then the Nazi racist is like telling him to give him his other hand. "Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me," you know, over and over. Finally, defense has had enough, and he's got this knife, the switchblade that he got from one of the gang members, and boom, stabs him right in the shoulder, or between the shoulder blade and the neck. And the guy is like, "What the?" He's stunned by this, and I guess he must have lost a lot of blood or whatever. They don't show it. He's like, "What is this? This isn't one of mine." Oh, the other thing that puts defense over the edge is he bought a gift for his daughter, and it's sort of a feminine type thing. It's a pony inside this snow globe. Actually, I think it might have been a unicorn or something like that. And he's like, "What is this?" He said, "This is gay shit," but he uses the derogatory term. And then he throws it again. He throws it and smashes it into bits, and that's where defense loses it. He totally freaking flips out on the guy, stabs him in the neck, and then comes up to shoot him. And just as he's getting ready to shoot him, the guy goes, "God, no, please God, please God." And then defense is like, "See, there you go. Now you're getting it. You're practicing your freedom of religion. Very good." Then he shoots the guy, killing him ultimately. And then we find out later from Pendergast, that the guy that he was found stuffed in one of his own cases dead. So now this is the turning point for defense. This is the point of no return. And this is in the next scene or two where he calls his wife and tells her, I have reached the point of no return. And that's what he says to her. I have reached the point of no return. Now this is the point of the movie. The audience knows this is a dangerous man. This is a no good man. Up until this point, he's been dealing with bad guys. And now the Nazi guy was totally evil. Yes. That he deserved to get stabbed, maybe. You know, he was, defense was defending himself at that point. But then when he shot him, not only did he shoot him and kill him, but he stuffed him in one of his own display cases. He went way too far. Way too far. So now it's like, like I said, the point of no return. So the next scene, we see him basically, he calls his wife, and that's when he tells him about the point of no return. That's when blah, blah, blah. And he just hangs up and he keeps going. And this is the funny part, is like he walks up, this driver sticking his head out the window, and he's yelling obscenities. I think he's yelling at this one woman, calling her a bitch and whatnot. And just as he's doing that, we see defense punch him out. And we're just like, yeah, all of a sudden we're cheering for the guy again, even though we shouldn't be. And it's just so funny. It's just such a funny scene, which we do need some comic relief at this point, because, right after that whole Nazi killing scene was just so gruesome and over the top, and just this scene coming right after it, just so funny and out of place, but it was still the comic relief we needed for this movie. And it's also this point in the movie where we know that nothing is going to get in his way. And he runs across, again, there's construction going on, and this construction theme has been going on ever since the beginning of the movie. And now we finally finish our conclusion in the whole construction theme. He comes up to a construction worker and asks him at point blank, what is wrong with the street? And after a little run around and a snarky remark, let's listen to what the guy tells him. Here's a small clip from Falling Down, the construction scene. Let's listen to that real quick.
Street. We're fixing it. What the hell does it look like?
2 days ago it was fine. You telling the street fell apart in 2 days?
Well, I guess so.
Pardon me, but that's bullshit. I want to know what's wrong with the street. See, I don't think anything's wrong with the street.
So basically, he calls his bullshit. And he says, no, I know how it works. He goes, you guys got to justify your inflated budgets. If you don't spend the money that you have in the next 2 years, then you don't get another so much money for your budget the next following year, which is really kind of the truth. You can look it up. You can Google it. It's really, how all this works. So he's calling him on his bullshit, and as he's doing it, he moves his hand over to his hip, revealing his gun, and his gun's sticking out through his pants. The guy sees this, and immediately the guy changes his answer, says, look, okay, I'll admit, there's really nothing wrong with the street. Look, I'm just here just keep people from falling in, that's all. He goes, I really don't know what's wrong with the street. There's nothing wrong with it. You're right, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, defense gloats and says, see, I knew it. I knew there was nothing wrong with the street. But I tell you what, I will give you something to fix. So then he pulls out a bazooka out of his bag, and the guy runs off. He goes, holy shit, this guy's got a bazooka and all this stuff, And some little kid comes walking up to him, and he tells them how to operate the bazooka, because of course a little kid would know, So he gets the bazooka ready and stuff like that, and the kid's telling them how to aim it and all this. And he goes, so what movie are you making? Because the kid thinks he's making a movie, and he says, under construction. So So then he takes the bazooka and he goes, so how do you shoot it? And he has his finger right up on the trigger as the kid's trying to explain, just push that button right there. And just as he says that, he releases the button and accidentally goes off, goes underneath the manhole, shoots all the way down the street, and nothing happens. Kid goes, well, it's probably a dud or something like that. Next thing you know, boom! Big explosion. Everybody's running for their lives. There's chaos. There's panic. Everyone's running in the street. And I gotta tell you, this scene is probably one of the most funniest, yet one of the most satisfying scenes, because we've all been there, right? We've all seen construction workers blocking off the street, or you get down, the street, and I've had this happen to me before. You get halfway down the street, and then there's a sign all the way down that says road closed, and then you realize, well, how come that sign wasn't at the beginning of the road where I started? No, I have to get all the way down the street to find out that the road's closed. And when I get down there, there's no good place to turn around. So now I got to back up somehow, try to find a good place to back up and turn around and go the other way. Well, I can't. And I'm kind of stuck here, So then you have to go around the roadblock kind of and back up and turn around. And you got construction workers yelling at you. And you know the drill. You know the whole bit. So anyway, we've all wanted to have that moment where we confronted the construction workers. But, not all of us have bazookas, like this guy does. So again, there's another one of those fantasies that he sort of plays out for us. And we get on to our next scene. After all this goes on, I have no idea why there's no cops that show up. There's nothing that happens. But somehow, some way, he's on the run. And now we go with the Pendergast and his partner, his old partner, the female cop. And they're going to the mother's house. So now we get a little look, an inside look at this Bill guy. And we hear about his real name, his family. We get an inside look, and the two cops are there at the mother's house, and it's the same mother who played the mother of Superman. If you've ever seen the movie Hollywoodland, it's the same mother who played the mother of George Reeves in the movie Hollywoodland. Anyway, she's really not into having the cops there. They're hassling her, asking her a bunch of questions and stuff, and you could tell right away that there's some fear behind her eyes, like she's genuinely scared that he's going to do something to her, like he's already probably yelled at her before, maybe even threatened her, who knows. But you get that sense, just that sense of fear, that sense of your heart just sunk. It's a little bit intense, to be quite honest with you. And now you got a little insight of this guy, and you realize he was kind of a little bit on edge to begin with. There was a little bit of that derangedness there. It was underneath the surface the whole time, just waiting to break out. And this just happened to be the day that it finally broke through the surface, and it finally broke out, and there's always a little bit of that there when you're dealing with a guy like this, when you're dealing with a little bit of the nutcase. So now it's at this point in the movie where the audience has now got some inside information. We got the inside track on this guy, and now we understand why, or maybe a little bit why, of what he's doing. It goes a lot deeper than him just having a bad day and snapping, going posto, as it were. So we find out this information that he lost his job 6 months ago, and she herself didn't know anything about it. She didn't know where his wife and kid lived because he wouldn't tell her. He was afraid she was going to screw everything up, and she says that he blamed her for the marriage breaking apart, and so there's that inside look, that inside information of this guy's life. And then we move on to the next scene, which I was getting ready to talk about before I just remembered I was supposed to talk about this scene, because this scene's very important to get sort of that inside information. But now moving on, we see him climbing a fence, and it's the fence of a country club, a golf club, if you will, a golf/country club. And he gets over there, and he's walking across the lawn, or the golf course, and these two old men are getting ready to play golf. Now here's a scene that always give me a sense of satisfaction, but at the same time always kind of made me sad a little bit. But it was almost, at that time, it was like, here are these white men with white privilege. Now you talk about white privilege, and everyone likes to throw around that word white privilege, and I really don't want to get into political stuff here or anything like that. But these kind of people are the true nature of white privilege. Like, when you think about white privilege, you don't think about a guy like me that has a broken down apartment with cracks in the walls and a leak in his floor and all this stuff. These are the kinds of guys you think about. White rich guys who belong to exclusive clubs. And this Bill guy gets into this in a way that's really surreal. And you know, it's really eye-awakening is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, he gets there, and the guy's pissed off. He sees him walking across the course, and and then Bill our defense basically says, "Hey, I'm just walking through. I'll be out of here in a minute." And the guy's like, "Get the F off of my course. Get the fuck out of here right now." He's mad. He's upset. He feels like his privilege is being intruded upon. And the other old man, who has some sense about him, is telling him, "Hey man, just, let this guy play through. He doesn't look like he's quite all there. He looks like the cheese has fallen off of his sandwich a long time ago. So why don't you just let him be, let him cut across, whatever. I just don't want any trouble." But no, the old man says, "You know what? If he gets in my way, he gets in my way." And he yells "4" 2 different times, hits the golf ball, proceeds to hit the golf ball, and nearly hitting defense in the head, and he ducks out of the way. And this is what we hear. This is the line that he says in the movie. Here we go.
What the hell are you trying to do? Kill me with a golf ball? Is that enough? You got all these beautiful Lakers friends in for your little game, but you gotta kill me with a golf ball? You should have children playing here. You should have families having picnics. You should have a goddamn petting zoo. Instead you got these stupid little electric carts for you have nothing better to do?
So after we get that, he shoots the golf cart, right? He shoots the golf cart, and the golf cart goes into the water. Now here's where karma plays in, is that the other old man, the old man that was doing all the yelling and all that stuff, he starts having a heart attack right there on the fucking golf course. And then Michael Douglas's character, defense starts going, "Well, what's the matter with you, huh?" And he's like, my heart. And then the other old guy's like, "My friend's having a heart attack." And then defense is like, "Well, you're having a heart attack. Well, what do you want me to do?" And he's like, "Get my pills." He's like, "Your pills? Well, where are your pills?" And he's like, he points to the golf cart. Oh, man. Woo! What a twist of fate that was. The pills were in the golf cart. And, of course, here's the golf cart going slowly into the water. And then the golf cart sinks into the water. Oh, my God. That's what I'm talking about. It was so satisfying because the old man was a total fucking prick and a total asshole and all that stuff. But at the same time, you don't want to see some old guy die. You know what I'm saying? But, yeah. He had a little bit of empathy for the old guy. He was going to help him if he could have gotten his pills. I don't know. He probably would have given him his pills. But the funniest line, the greatest line after this was like, now see? Now don't you wish you would have let me walk through your stupid little golf course? It's like, yeah. Now you're going to die wearing that stupid little hat. How's that feel? Oh, my goodness. So many good lines in this movie. Anyway, so, we're almost towards the end. And boy, what a journey it's been so far. So we go on to our next scene. So he sneaks into the backyard. He goes over the fence. The cops are coming for him, of course, because he just blew up the damn street. So now he climbs over this wall. And, well, he blew up the street and made an old man have a heart attack. But he climbs over this wall. And then he gets mad at who he thinks is the owner. And here's the beauty of the movie. Because the movie doesn't make it clear. Is this guy saying that he's not the owner? Because he knows this guy has got a gun and he's deranged and crazy? Or is he really not the owner and he's actually the caretaker? He tells him, I'm not the actual owner, I'm the caretaker. Because when he comes over the fence, he gets mad at the guy for putting barbed wire at the top of the fence because he cuts his hand. His logic is because he decided to break an entry. He's trespassing on private property, climbing over a fence, and yet he's mad at the owner for putting up the barbed wire at the top of the fence. Now, this one, I totally disagree with, and I don't think that he should be mad at these people. But when he finds out that the guy who owns this big, beautiful, glorious house, plastic surgery, bought all of it, then that kind of makes me mad. But the whole idea of being mad at somebody because you hurt your hand on their barbed wire fence because you were trespassing really doesn't go along with the theme of this movie. So, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to take points off for that one. But the brilliance of this scene is it's led up to us, the audience. It's sort of vague whether or not is this guy the real landowner or is he just who he says he is. And so throughout the movie, we also see people who are misinterpreting Defense's actions as the guy says, take me, I'll make a good hostage. And to which Defense replies, what, you think I want to hurt you and your family? I have a family of my own. Now this is where we kind of get the idea of what he's going to do, what he's going for.
You guys, she was going to play outside. My wife hold my hand. Talk about grown-up things. Then when it got dark, we'd all go to sleep together.
We would all sleep together at dark. Tell me that's not chilling. Now, when I first saw this movie and I was younger, I was naive and thought, well, maybe he's just talking about, they're all going to go to bed. No. As we find out later in the movie, the cop tells him, Pendergast tells him, no, you were going to kill your family and then you're going to kill yourself, weren't you? And we're pretty much in the loop now as to this is what his whole plan was from the beginning. And it gets pretty chilling from here as the movie continues. But we also see that there is some concern for this the little girl. He thinks that he cut her hand, but it was him. His hand was bleeding, and so forth. And there's one little scene that I forgot to mention where there was a guy holding a sign, "Not economically viable," and he was talking about how he was unable to get a small business loan, or not a business loan, just a loan at the bank, and he gets taken away by the police. And as he's in the back of the police car, he pauses and looks over at defense and says, "Don't forget me," talking to the people. But from our point of view, he's talking directly to defense, and at defense's point of view, he's talking to him, and it hits home with him. It really does. And he mentions it later here in this scene that he wasn't economically viable. That's why he lost his job. So we see him now. He's sitting at the house and he's watching home movies. And this part almost kind of makes you sad. And you could see sort of the breakdown of the character. You could feel sort of the sadness and sorrow that he's going through, the regret that he feels inside of his soul, as you can see him on camera, and he's yelling at his wife, why couldn't you get her on the Rocky Horse? It's his daughter's, I guess his daughter was about 2 years old at this time, her second birthday or whatever, and he bought the Rocky Horse, and he's visibly upset that she won't get on the horse. She's crying. She's throwing a fit, like little kids often do when they don't really understand what's going on. They don't really want to do what it is that you want them to do at the time you want them to do, and they're upset. They may be tired or overwhelmed or whatever. And it happens. It happens. But he's upset and he's yelling, and you can kind of see that the character at this moment sort of is breaking down, and you could see sort of the anger bursting through him and the breakdown in the marriage, and how psychologically this is all damaging to him and to the wife and to the daughter. However, later in the movie, at the very end, which we are rapidly approaching, when he approaches his daughter, she sees him running towards them. She is visibly happy. She's like, "Look, there's Daddy, there's Daddy." And at that point in the movie, we are feeling sorry for the daughter. We are feeling empathy for his daughter. She loves her daddy still, and as most little girls do, they do love and look up to their fathers and whatnot have you. And it's sad to see this whole dynamic, the breakdown of the daughter, between daughter and father. And the father, we could tell that he genuinely wanted his daughter. He wanted her back. He wanted her in his arms to say that he loves her and all this stuff. And we'll get to that here in just a little bit. I think we're at that point in the movie, because now's the point in the movie where he calls his wife. This is before he starts watching the home movies. And then he gets a phone call. And then he realizes the cops show up at the house, and the female cop goes in there, and we hear a gunshot. And Pendergast hears the gunshot, and he goes running in. And the guy has run off when he realizes that his wife is no longer in the house and that she's headed towards the pier. It's during this part of the movie, when he's watching the home movies, that he realizes that that's where they would be, at the pier, because that's where they took their daughter for every birthday that she had. And this is, so it clicks with him. He has that light bulb moment. And so he shoots the cop, runs out of the house. They run after him, or Pendergast runs after him after his partner says, go get him. The quintessential line in the movie where the cop tells his or her partner, go get him, So we get to that point in the movie now where he runs to the pier and he embraces his wife, unwanted, by the way, and She tells him, leave us alone, blah, blah, blah. And then she sees the gun in his hand and, is, of course, visibly frightened. And now we're on the side of the woman. We're on the mother's side where she wants to protect her child and keep her safe. And we all understand that as parents. And this is a very surreal moment, and it's a scary moment as well. We see him put the gun down. He puts it on the ground, and he goes to embrace his daughter, and he's talking to her. And then all of a sudden, there's Pendergast, and he's got popcorn, and he slowly walks towards him, telling his story. And that's when he opens up about his own experience with his own daughter and how they lost their daughter to infant death syndrome, which really, she died when she was around 2 years old, which was about the same age of his daughter when she had that birthday party and he was watching the home movies. So it kind of hits home with him in a way, and he kind of feels for the cop. But then, as Pendergast is telling the story, there's a moment where he has the gun down on the ground, and Pendergast motions to the wife to kick the gun away, and she does. And when she does, he comes running towards the gun, and when he does, this is the moment, the climax of the film, where Pendergast then grabs the gun out of his holster and tells the wife and the daughter to run away, get away from here, get her and get away. And she hesitates for a second, but then she finally breaks away, and he's got the gun pointed at him. And then we hear the ugly truth of Pendergast accounting exactly what it was he was going to do. Let's listen to this moment.
What you were going to do? You were to kill your wife and child.
Oh.
Yeah. And then it would be too late to turn back. It would be real easy to turn the gun around on yourself. Now let's go meet some nice policemen. They're good guys. Come on, let's go.
I'm the bad guy?
Yeah.
So then Bill proceeds to tell him how he was the good guy and he defended the country by building missiles. That's what he did for a living. And Pendergast then talks to him, and he says, hey, how about a shootout? This is the part of the movie where we've reached our climax. Things are about to go down. And we know now that defense has reached the point of no return, which he talks about earlier on. So this moment pays off. And spoiler alert, he asked the cop, let's have a showdown. Good guys versus bad guy. The sun is setting, the ultimate showdown. Pendergast, of course, doesn't want to do this. Then all of a sudden we see Bill draw his gun, and then we see Pendergast wipe his mustache after he shoots Bill. He shoots him. Bill falls off the bridge and into the water dead. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. Except we do see Pendergast. He goes up to the little girl and says, my name is Mud. And she's like, no way your name is Mud. And it's revealed that he's going to go back to the force, and his wife's going to be really upset with him. So, could Bill have shot Pendergast first? Well, I didn't notice this until I rewatched this movie here not too long ago to prepare for this review. And as it seems, you see Pendergast move up to his mustache and wipe what appears to be liquid. So did Bill shoot first? Did he hit Pendergast? He says, as he gets shot by Pendergast, I could have got you. And it appears as though he did get him. So had it have been a real gun, the audience is led to believe that at this time that Pendergast would in fact have been dead, and Bill would have continued with his rampage. And so that does it. That is the end of the movie. I don't know how long this is going to be. I certainly hope you enjoyed my retrospective on Falling Down, all of the thoughts and ideas that I had on this movie. I hope it wasn't too boring for you. I know I didn't put in all the fancy jokes and all the glamorous glitz and all that stuff that most people put into their reviews. But this wasn't just a review. This was more of a in-depth look. Like we really went deep on this one. We really looked deep into the heart of the characters and to the Bill character. And, this is something I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And as I said before, I hope you've really enjoyed this. And if you've liked this video, please rate and comment. And what did you think of the movie? What are your thoughts? Did you have any in-depth analysis that you looked at maybe when watching this movie for the first time or rewatching this movie? Let me know down in the comments section. And until next time, this is Hebro77 saying, everyone has a bad day every once in a while, but no one has a bad day quite like defense. See you next time.